Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to my Elder Scrolls Legend review. This is a relatively new game that Direwolf Digital have been making, along with another card game they've been making called Eternal, which I will maybe get around to. Maybe. I was playing the game for a bit when it was under NDA, so I couldn't do anything on it, and now I'm not playing it, so I'm not sure if I'm going to cover it. But you never know. So the point is, between the two games, Eternal and Elder Scrolls, I'm kind of surprised they managed to make two different card games at the same time. It's quite impressive. So, what do I think of Elder Scrolls Legends? Well, it's built off the Elder Scrolls universe, and that is quite a big pull, which means there's a lot of new players to this game. And first things first with this, the new player experience. It is honestly the best I've ever seen in a card game. Like, the best. It has the single best single-player mode and tutorial I've ever seen. So, let's just tour around the menus a bit here. We've got the profile down there. We've got leveling, gold, shop, collection, and packs. So, if we go onto the play button here, there's the story mode. Now, this is the first thing that you'll encounter. Well, tutorial, then story. Now, this is a 3-act campaign, which is quite well done. There's cutscenes as well, and interesting missions, and more importantly, it basically completely takes out the AI grinding. As in, between this and ranked, you don't need to do any. Like, you just do the campaign, you get the rewards, because the rewards are very good from the campaign, and then you can do some other free stuff, and then after that you go into ranked and you're playing as people of equal level to you. So campaign, very good, and it's very fun. It also doesn't drag on that long. I found that 20 missions was the point when I was like, is this going to end at some point? And it did. So so 19-20 missions is about as long as it should be, and I think that this is a very well done new player experience, and it's something that I hope that more card games do. I remember Eternal also had something like this, but this really did take it to another level. So the new player experience is very good. Now, outside of that, for modes, we've got Solo Arena and Versus Arena. Now, these are similar. Basically, it's Arena from Hearthstone. But in Solo Arena, you play against AI, but the rewards are less. And in Versus Arena, it's just Arena from Hearthstone. However, the rewards are much higher. They cap 7 wins, but to give you an idea of how much higher, the free-to-play model in terms of gold is the same. Not in terms of generosity, but in terms of gold, it's the same. However, in Arena, you pay 150 gold, and if you go 7 wins, you get 150 gold back, 3 packs, and also dust. It's kind of insane, actually. And you break even in terms of value at 2 wins, and in terms of gold value at 3. Like, you'll get a pack and 50 gold at 3, and like a card, and some dust. Like, in terms of actual value, you break even at 2, which is just incredible. It's a very generous system when it comes to Arena, which means that you can get off the ground quite quickly. And also, if we go into Versus Arena, there is a ranking system. Now, every time you get 7 wins, you go up a rank, meaning that you don't crush new players. So yeah, new players face against other new players, which is a very good system. So anyway, besides that, we've got practice, which is just AI. You start with novice, and then you beat that, play adept, beat that, play expert. Now, this does give you a small amount of dust whenever you beat them for the first time, so I'd recommend doing them quickly. They're not very difficult. And then you got versus battle. Now, you got 2. You got casual and ranked. Casual is mostly where you'll be doing quests, but you got ranked, which starts at 11, I think, and then has legend. So once you get to legend, you get given an actual rank. Now, I did notice that the grinding in this game is significantly less. There's also end-of-season rewards, as far as I know. I have not been playing this game for long enough to be around for a full season, but there is season rewards. So we'll see how good those are. So, what else about the menus? Well, we've got a profile down here, including your level. Now, this shows you your quest. It shows you match history, collection status, although that's a bit strange because it does by card and not by amount of dust, so the number is a bit deceptive. It shows ranks in all of the arenas and also in ranked. And then you can choose titles. These are basically achievements. A lot of achievements. There's a lot of them, basically. You're not going to get bored if you're a completionist. So yeah, there is an achievement list, and more importantly, and this is important, your avatar. Now, this is one of the least intuitive things I've ever seen. But I kind of understand why they did it, I just wish it was more obvious. Now, the way that the avatar works is that at level 24 and 30, you get a legendary for leveling. And depending on your avatar, it affects what legendary it is. Which is incredibly dumb. But, yeah, is still worth knowing. Now, I'll put a imager thing in the description that tells you which legendaries you can get at those levels, because it's a chance-based thing, and then you can choose your avatar accordingly. So, for instance, I wanted General Talius, which is an avatar, which is an Imperial legendary. So for a while I was using an Imperial avatar, and then I hit lucky on level 24 and I ended up getting him. But yeah, I think after level 30 there's no real reason to have a specific avatar, it's just pick whatever you like. So anyway, that's how the avatar system works. It's a little bit confusing. I wish they were, you know, a little bit more obvious with that. But in general, I mean, it's nice that they kind of tailor rewards to you, but they should be more obvious. General stats, this is mostly just really stupid stuff, like damage dealt, and then full detailed match history. So anyway, one of the main complaints I have with this game right now is the menu speed. In fact, that's pretty much the only major complaint I have with it. The menu speed is very slow. Like, it takes a full second and a half, I think, to go from page to page. Like, if we go to arena and then I want to get to profile, that took about 10 seconds. Like, it's a very slow menu, and that's the only issue that I have with the game right now, is the menu speed. Then again, I'm very fidgety while playing card games. But anyway, that's the only complaint I have. It doesn't really affect gameplay, but it is slightly annoying. But anyway, on to the rest of the stuff. We've got the shop. Now, the shop is separated into tickets, codes, packs, etc. Now, for packs, it is the same pricing model as Hearthstone, I think. Now, the packs do have 6 cards in them, and from what I can tell, you're more likely to get epics and legendaries in this game. However, you are also going to require 3 of a legendary for some stuff. There's 2 types of legendaries, uniques and non-uniques. And unique ones you can only have 1 in a deck, and non-unique you may need 3. So, the free-to-play model, I haven't been around long enough to really comment on it massively. However, from what I can tell, it's easier to get into the game than Hearthstone. It's easier to get your first deck and build up your collection through arenas and things like that. But it is harder to get a full collection. So that's what I've heard. Now, again, I can't really verify it, but that's what I've heard. So because you need multiple of each legendary to get a complete collection, it's harder to get a complete collection, but it's easier to get your first deck. Which, again, favors newer players a bit more because, in general, if you're new to the game, you just want a deck to play with. And that's kind of what I noticed, actually, was within the first 3 days, I was able to make a decent decking constructed to start grinding up to Legend. And I ended up doing the Legend grind from there in about 3 or 4 days. So, Yeah, it is definitely much easier to get your first deck. However, I think it's probably harder to get a complete collection. Speaking of the collection, now this is basically the same design as Hearthstone. Now, we've seen this deck builder design in Duelist and the Star Crusader, and I think that this is a decent one, but it's not as good as Hearthstone's, and there is one reason for it. I can't click above or below the arrow to move the page. However, I can use the mouse wheel, so that kind of fixes that problem a little bit. But yeah, that's the only reason that I prefer Hearthstone's deck builder over this. However, the rest of it, I mean, you can see more cards, and the game is separated into colors and not classes. And this is actually a very interesting way of doing it. It's got a 5-color like wheel basically, and each deck you're allowed to pick 2 colors, and then you've also got some neutrals in the game, not a lot, but you do have some neutrals in the game, and then you got multicolor cards which define archetypes. So, like for instance, you can only play Soundress Agent if you're playing blue and green. Like if we, and there's General Telius, by the way. You see the unique symbol at the top means you can only have one in the deck. This is what I got through leveling, and this guy is a yellow and purple legendary. But yeah, all decks can choose 2 colors. There are some incentives to go mono, but in general, you can choose 2 colors. And you don't get messed up by resources or anything, because the resource system is similar to Hearthstone's. Like, it's the same, but the cap is 12 and not 10, which means that higher cost cards actually see a bit more play in this game, because you don't get as punished for spending your whole turn playing them. So anyway, that's the interface, and then we've got what they call Soulsight, which is basically just the enchanting mode. As you can see, there's also foil cards, and there's a mass disenchant button. Now, keep in mind, this is in early, well, I say early, it's in beta, which means a lot of the stuff isn't final in terms of visuals, but you get the general idea. There's also premium mode if you want to just craft goldens, and the goldens are a little bit toned down, but they're fairly cool to look at. I was never a big fan of foils that much anyway, but some of them are definitely cooler than others, but in general the animations are a little bit toned down, which I imagine is probably just because of how difficult it is to program an extra set of cards. But you never know, they may update the golden animations in some cases in the future. I remember Hearthstone actually updated their golden animations in beta, when about half of them were really bad, and they updated them before release. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they update some of the foil animations before then. So anyway, that's the general deck builder. I quite like it. Now if we go on to just a random deck that I've been playing. This deck is not fantastic, but it was good enough to get to Legend. It's pseudo budget. I might do a few deck techs if people are interested. Yeah, I've been streaming the game a decent amount, but I might do a few videos. We shall see. But yeah, in terms of looking at deck, you can click here and you've got the curve. I'm glad that this is here now, by the way, because instead of just popping up, because this is a very useless thing to show in a lot of cases. And it's annoying that it was just popping up randomly in Hearthstone. However, there's one problem with this. To delete a deck, you need to open the deck and then click here and then delete, and it takes ages. You can also adjust avatar of the deck, which is always nice. But yeah, that's the only complaint I have about that, is deleting decks takes a little bit longer. Again, with that menu speed thing, which I expect they might actually update. But anyway, so outside of deck building, let's head into an actual game and show how the game itself works. Now, the game is similar to Hearthstone, but it is not the same. There's quite a few differences. Let's see if we can find a ranked game. Now, the queue times are very short in ranked, because the player base is actually quite large. Now, first thing you'll notice, there are 2 lanes. We'll get to that after I do mulligans. Now, the way going first, second works is that second place does not get an extra card, but they get 3 activations of the coin. And apparently that has resulted in about a 51% for going first, which is good. I'll keep the double 2-drop, 4-drop. Alright, so I'm going second. Now we've got the field lane, which just acts normally, and then we've got the shadow lane, where anything going into the shadow lane can't be attacked for a turn, which offers a very, very strange dual nature. Now, we're going to start off with the spell sword, which has ward, which is basically divine shield. Now, there is an emote system, and there is no global mute button, which irritates me, as a lot of you will know. But anyway, so generally you want to take control of the field lane and then force your opponent to shadow lane. Because then, if you're trying to contest a bit, you can put stuff in the shadow lane and then they can't trade into it very easily. Now, he could have some buffs. I don't like using the ward on a 1-1, but I kind of have to in this case. And we're going to use the second flask and play the armor. Now, the armor gives anything I play afterwards +2 health, which is always handy. So let's see what he's got. Now, outside of here, deck size is 50. When you reach 0, you lose. I have yet to reach 0. It seems a lot more uncommon than you'd expect. Now, that's Cunning Ally, one of the reasons to play more mono in decks, and that could generally be an issue, because now he got the Firebolt off it, so he can get rid of my armor next turn. So I think what we're going to do is attack first, and you'll notice there's little sigils around life totals. That's the rune system, which we'll get to when I actually break one. We used to find Elixir and play Midnight Sweep, get 2 2/2s with Taunt, make them both 4 HP. But anyway, so the rune system is basically whenever you deal 5 damage to someone, well, kind of. It's whenever they get to 25, 20, 15, 10, or 5, they draw a card. And if that card has Prophecy, you get to play it immediately. And it basically punishes you for just going full aggro. And it's quite a good system. In fact, it's so efficient that they actually had to add cards into the game that reward you for being ahead on life, because it was just devolving down to no one attack ever. So yeah, that kind of shows how efficient it is. Whereas nowadays it's a bit of a mix, since there's a mix of more control-y decks and also decks that rely on being ahead on life earlier in the game. So what we're going to do is break a rune first, because I don't want to get messed up by Prophecy, and we're going to go double Brahma Profiteer. Now, I've sort of been forced into the shadow lane. The blue decks in general are a bit rough for this one, because they have a lot of cheap removal, and it's very, very difficult to stick on the board with a deck like this. And this is a token deck that relies on Divine Fervor, which is a 4 mana, give everything +1/+1 permanently, like aura type effect. But when you don't draw it, it causes some issues. Yeah, that's one of the cards that rewards you for being ahead on life. So if I'm ahead on life, I get 2 4/4s, which is very, very good value for 6 mana. But if I'm not ahead on life, it's not fantastic. Alright, so we had double removal. We'll time down 22. Now I think at this point we have to play the Black Marsh Warden, which will give me an extra 1/1 every turn, and Scouting Patrol, putting a 1/1 in each lane. And next turn, hopefully, I'll be able to play Golden Saint down. Now, you can have 4 creatures in a lane, and when a lane is full, you can replace certain creatures. Well, I mean, if you play another creature there, you get to choose which one to replace. Now, the dual lane nature also allows for a lot more interesting card designs, where a lot of board clears, for instance, will be focused on one lane specifically, which means that you can play around them more easily, and it also means that the person playing them can be a little bit more cunning with how they play their board clears. That was Royal Sage, so if he's on higher life than me, he gives everything a random keyword. Now, I do want to get Divine Fervor down this turn, but I also just want to get the Golden Saint down. Hard to tell what the play is here. Well, if I get Divine Fervor, he can't really take out the Warden for free. So I think we're just going to play Divine Fervor and go for it. It's a bit mana inefficient, but I don't really have a choice. Oh, there's Prophecy. Now, this could be Firestorm, which is 2 damage AoE in 1 lane. Shrieking Harpy. Prophecy Shackle. Shackle is basically freeze. Now, if you notice, because this lane is full, it puts something in the other lane. Now, let's see what he's going to do here. So, the Royal Sage has lethals, so it's basically got deadly. So he gets to take out that 3/5, and then outside of that, he's probably just going to take out the Marsh Warden. Interesting. Now, he is ahead right now because he has a lot of cards. However, I do have Divine Fervor, which means I can maybe swing this game back. So he's got to be careful. The longer this game goes, the worse it gets for him. Unless he finds some sort of a removal for Divine Fervor. There's a 4/4 that can silence and also remove supports, which is probably what he's looking for. Frost Atronach. Now, I do like Golden Saint here. The problem is it just gets traded with again. I could go Brahma Armorer and Resolute Ally, but then I might miss my Golden Saint opportunity. So I think I'm just going to go for the Golden Saint. So I'm on higher life than he is, so they both become 5/5s. It's a little bit awkward because this Royal Sage can take out the 5/5 and trade with it, but at least I've got the field lane now. Alright, so there's the Steel Sword you got off of the 2/1 earlier, which is a +3/+0 item. Now, the way weapons work in this game is they're basically just buffs, and you can actually silence them off. Something else that works a bit differently in this game is something gets returned to hand, and it's like a token that you made that's a different color. You can still play it, just for its mana cost. Now, there's the Shadowfen Priest that destroys supports, which means that I'm in serious trouble. Yeah, he is applying pressure to me, though, which may not work out fantastically. Now, I think at this point, I can play Trainer and Reinforcements. That gives me a lane of 2/1s, and then maybe I can get a sneaky lethal or something. I think that's what I have to go for. So I've got Warcry. I can give +2/+0 for 1 turn in 1 lane. So maybe I can get a sneaky lethal. I doubt I can, but it's possible. But yeah, if we look at stuff like the graveyard, it actually shows everything in the yard. Now this is relevant for some stuff like the purple reward for having extra life, which is a 4/4 that rewards that revives a random creature from the yard. So it's actually relevant to know which creatures are in the yard. Now it does include tokens. Another reinforcements. Oh wow, he was 1 off lethal, I think. Oh no, it's an X branch master, not A supreme. Okay, so if I Warcry, then I deal 9 damage. 12, even if I get lucky. Yeah, it's not going to work. Is there any way I can survive, basically, at this point? Well, if I Warcry, I can kill off those. I can Piercing Javelin this and maybe get from there. The question is that a winning play? Because I think you just play something else and I'm dead. So I think what I'm going to do instead is play Resolute Ally. If it hits, I think I can win this game. But if it doesn't, well, I wasn't really going to win through the other options anyway. So, yeah, I just don't have the mana for lethal. It's really frustrating. So I'll take the trades, and then we're just going to Javelin this dude as the removal spell. Put him down to 12. Now he can't threaten lethal. Well, he still technically can with a burn spell. Like, blue has access to Lightning Bolt, which is just 4 damage. And there you go. So yeah, bit rough. After I lost the Divine Fervor, couldn't really come back from that. But anyway, that is the basic game. It looks a lot like Hearthstone, but there's a lot more play to it. The rune system means that you have to actually think before attacking, and a lot of people just randomly attack for no reason. And you'll actually lose a lot of games if you do that, because you'll give them so many cards that they just draw their board clears and then clear you out. So you need to be able to attack when you know you have an advantage, and they can't just swing it round in one turn if they have specific cards. And well, sometimes you also just have to, if you really need to, and it's a bit of a risk and an all-in play. Or if you have some sort of for sure lethal afterwards, like a burn spell or a charge creature or something like that. So yeah, the rune system definitely adds a lot of depth to the game, as does the lanes. The lanes make things complicated sometimes, and it does mean that sometimes the game just becomes one person in one lane, another person in the other lane, and then there's no interaction between them. That is quite rare though. That generally only happens between aggro mirrors. So yeah, it's very interesting how that happens, and in general the lane system plays out differently depending on the skill level of the players actually playing, which is also interesting. But anyway, that's pretty much my entire overview of Elder Scrolls Legends. I actually do quite like the game outside of the menu speed. But yeah, I do quite like the game. I've been having a lot of fun playing it. I've been streaming it on my non-tournament days recently, since, as a lot of you know, I stream Spellweaver when there's tournaments, and not so much when there isn't. But I've been streaming it on the other days when there hasn't been a tournament, and it's been fairly fun, to be honest. It has been a very, very fun experience. I would highly suggest actually trying out the game. It's an open beta right now, simply because the new player experience is very, very good. And the first 10 to 20 hours of the game is definitely probably the best experience I've had, at least with a card game. And it gives you a good understanding of the game, and then you can kind of decide whether or not you want to continue with it, which I think is a very, very good way of doing it, and it's something which I think a lot of card games struggle with, is new player experience, but this one has it on lock. But yeah, it's not just Hearthstone. It looks like Hearthstone. They took a lot of stuff from Hearthstone, but similar to, say, Duelist, they took a lot from Hearthstone, but they also edited the gameplay to make it a lot more interesting. Like, it's a lot more complex and a lot more decision making. Like, you're punished for bad plays, whether or not you realize they're bad plays, but you are punished for bad plays regardless, and that's something which I think is very, very good. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or want to ask me any questions, put in the comment section below. If you want to support the channel directly, there is a link to my Patreon in the description. I'll also put a link to an image folder with all the level up legendaries, so you know which avatar you want to pick. But as for now, it's been Jotto, signing off.